kellythebo.com. With that, Kelly Thibault.
So I wanted to spend a couple of moments this morning just giving you the story of how I became a channel. And then we are going to let the collective speak for themselves. And if we have time, we'll take some questions for them as well. So in early April of 2016, Rick and I were not raised in religious homes. When I had children, I decided that I needed to start going to church because, I had kids and that's what people do. And we were heavily involved in the church for about 15 years and became somewhat disillusioned with that and began to feel as if there was something else available, something that would be more meaningful to me. So we left the church, and for 2 years we didn't do anything. I read books, mostly metaphysical books. I didn't know another metaphysical person on the planet. I found out there's a whole group that meets right around the corner from my house, but I didn't know that then. And I was sitting there one night reading the Seth material, and I realized it was channeled literature. I wasn't quite sure what that meant or quite how I felt about this whole idea of channeling, but the information in the book really resonated with me. My interest in it was more from a information perspective and how that was feeling and whether or not that was feeling like truth for me. So it's about 2:30 in the morning, and Rick had long since gone to bed. And I decided it was time to hit the sack, and I went into the bathroom to use the restroom before I went to bed, which is in the front of our house, so the shades are always down. And I just decided to put up the shade. And I looked out there, and I said, "Seth, are you out there?" Which is totally corny, but I know some of you guys do that kind of thing too. I don't know why I said that. I don't even know why I opened the window. Who does that at 2:30 in the morning? And there was a UFO hanging in the sky. And it took me probably about 10 seconds to realize what I was looking at. I went through all the standard things. Wow, that's a really big planet. Wow, that's a really bright star. Wow, look at all the colors. And then, wow, that's not any of those things. And I just was stunned. I was just stunned. It was completely unexpected. It wasn't something that I realized that I was inviting. So I ran into Rick, who is an avid watcher of ancient aliens, and I knew that he would jump out of bed and come to the window, and I couldn't even get him to wake up. I was, "Honey, I think I'm seeing a UFO." "You're not seeing a UFO. I have to work in the morning, So I ran out to the living room and went to the back of our house, opened up the patio door there, and I could see it so clearly. And our son was living with us for a very short period of time in between apartments. So I ran downstairs, and sure enough, he was awake. He was gaming. I said, "Michael, I think I'm seeing a UFO." He said, "I got to go, you guys. My mom is seeing a UFO." So he gets off the microphone and runs upstairs with me, and he was just stunned as well. He said, "You're right. I think that's what it is." And he ran downstairs and dug through his boxes and got out a video recorder. And I sat at the back door videotaping that UFO for 2.5 hours. Mike got bored with it about 20 minutes in, went back to his game. And in that 2.5 hours, my whole life changed. It wasn't just the concept that it was an aircraft. My father was in the military. I grew up on Air Force bases for 20 years. I could handle the fact that maybe there's some technology we have that the rest of us don't know about. I can handle that. But this was different. It was just different. And I couldn't figure out, why is it still there? How many times do you see a UFO video that's 2.5 hours long? That just doesn't happen. That, or they're seriously clipping them and editing them by the time they're showing them to us, right? So, I stood there for a long time running through the questions. What is it and why is it here? And can anyone else see it? I took my video camera and I panned my neighborhood. There was not a light on in any other house. As far as I could tell, I was the only person that witnessed that craft. And we had scheduled, right before that, to come to the Twin Cities to see Eric Christopher. I know many of you know Eric, and he's been here to speak. Oh, here's Eric. Hey, Eric. He's been here to speak before. And we already had that scheduled, and we were going to go do a past life regression because that's what metaphysical people do. And this is what I had read in the books, and I didn't know anyone. And I had read Newton's book, and I had read some books by Brian Weiss, and I had thought, this sounds interesting. I'm going to go and experience this. But I didn't really have an agenda, So when I went to see Eric 3 weeks later, he said, "Do you have a list of questions?" I said, "I don't have very many, but I saw this UFO." And I showed him the video on my phone. He said, "Wow, that's really interesting." So then we went into the past life regression. And I blew through about 6 past lives, and at the end of that session, I was speaking. They were speaking through me, 3 beings that obviously were not human, standing in front of me in that regression, and they were speaking through me. And I didn't really get that at the time. You know, I was in a hypnotic state, and I was just really having a great time with what I was experiencing. And when I got done, Eric said to me, you know, you were channeling. I said, you know, I've been reading some books about channeling. What really is that? And we had a conversation about it. That's how clued in I was to the fact I was going to be a channel. So it wasn't very long after that, we had scheduled a trip to Sedona, because that's also something that metaphysical people do. And when we went to Sedona, we had scheduled to have a reading, because I had never had a reading before, and that is something that metaphysical people do. So we went to Sedona, and I went to this reading, and this woman looked at me and she said, wow, you're a channel for the Star Nations. And I thought to myself, I bet you tell all of the tourists that. We left there, and I said to Rick, this is what she said to me. And you know, I had that thing with Eric. That's interesting, isn't it? And that's about as far as that went for me, that it was interesting. I just was not clicking yet, you know? And so I was there that week in Sedona to, how many of you watch Gaia.com? Gaia.com on the internet? Yeah. Regina Meredith has a wonderful show on there called Open Minds, and she was having a workshop at her home that weekend, and that was one of the reasons we were in Sedona, is I thought, wow, I get to meet Regina Meredith, and this will be really cool. And so we go to Regina's house, and she has a psychic woman there who now is married to her son. And she let this woman do readings for us, and this was a surprise. It wasn't part of the agenda. And so she's telling everyone about their past lives and their trauma, and when she got to me, she just smiled really big, and she said, you're a channel for the Star Nations. And I said, so I hear. And it was odd, because they were all saying it the same way. They were saying it using the exact same words, which jumped out at me immediately. Then that night, Rick decided that he wanted to go UFO watching, because we had had this experience, and we went and saw this wonderful woman called Anita Owens. If you're ever in Sedona, look her up. She's colorful and wonderful, and she'll show you some UFOs. So we went out UFO viewing, you know, with the goggles and everything, and we get all done with this, and Anita says to me, you know, I feel like you and I are supposed to talk. Would you come by my office tomorrow? So I went to her office the next day, and I sat down, and she said, you know, everybody is, she's a psychic, she does readings. She said, everybody's showing up. You're a channel for the Star Nations. And that's when it really hit me. I thought, you know, something is happening here, and it's something I do not understand at all. So I said to her, do you mind if we just stop right there and I ask you some questions? What in the world does that mean? What does that mean when you are a channel for the Star Nations? What does that mean that I would do? She said, well, they would speak through you and bring their message forward. And if you were willing, you know, they're telling me that can be the rest of your life. And we went home from Sedona. We left, and we're driving down the highway. For anyone who's been to Sedona, there's some very desolate desert between Sedona and Phoenix where you go to the airport. We're driving down the highway in our rental car, and Rick and I are just casually talking, and I see something glint in the desert over here, and I looked over there, and 2 UFOs picked up off the desert. They were saucer-shaped, I would say about 8 feet each. They came over in front of our car, and were flying in front of our car going down the highway. And to say that I was freaking out would be the understatement of the century. I had the same reaction to that anyone would have. Oh my God! And Rick said, what? Quit yelling. You're going to run me off the road. I said, can't you see them? He said, I don't know what you're talking about. And that whole conversation got real weird real quick. I said, you can't see them. He looked at me and said, see what? What is wrong with you? I said, Rick, there are 2 UFOs right in front of the car. Then he starts going, where? Where? I said, right in front of the car. And he couldn't see them. And I couldn't understand that. You know, when Michael got up, he could see the one that I saw in the backyard, and here my husband was driving the car. They couldn't have been more than 10 feet in front of our car. They were keeping pace with our vehicle, and he couldn't see them. And that just left me speechless all the way home. I didn't say a word. I just had to think about that, you know. Then we flew into Green Bay. We live in Appleton, Wisconsin, which is just south of Green Bay. And we came home. It was about 11 o'clock at night by the time we got back into our neighborhood. And as we were approaching our neighborhood on Highway 15, I saw another one, and it was huge. And it was lit up like the sun. And it was dropping like the New Year's ball, just really slow as we were approaching it. And I said, my God, there's another one. And he goes, where? I'm like, you can't see that? It's 11 o'clock at night, pitch black. This thing was shining like the sun, and he couldn't see it. And I started thinking, maybe I'm going a little nuts here, you know? So we went home. Through Regina Meredith, I met Sheila Gillette. Sheila is the channel, has been for 4 decades, for Theo, a group of 12 archangels. And it was through Sheila that Esther Hicks began to channel. A lot of people know Esther. I find not everybody knows Sheila, but Sheila played a pivotal role in Esther coming online. So I contacted her. She has some mentoring classes. If you go to their website, it's asktheo.com. And on their website, they have mentoring classes, and Rick and I got involved in these mentoring classes. And it took me about 8 weeks into that class to ask Theo the big question. You know, I didn't want to talk about it. It totally freaked me out. You know, I had a couple of nights where I sat in my living room doing this. Okay, I'm ready. You know, what am I supposed to do? You know, and I just felt self-conscious and silly and all the things that you would feel if you were me. You know, people are telling you this, and I don't know what to do with that. I don't know how to be that. But I know that I was very excited about the possibility. After a while, I got used to it. So I finally asked Theo about 8 weeks in. I said, okay, you're the archangel, so I don't need to give you the backstory. I've had all these experiences, and I want to know, is this real? They said, yes. I said, everything I saw, all those spaceships, they're real? They said, yes. I said, why couldn't Rick see them? They said, because he's not ready, you are. And they said, you know, it's the rest of your life if that's what you want. And so the first thing that I want to say about embracing change is that you have a choice. You know, we all do. And sometimes change can be scary, and sometimes it can be wonderful. Lots of times it's wonderful after it's scary. You know, so it was an amazing experience, and it wasn't very long after that where I sat in my living room again, and they actually came through. And when they first came through, they sounded something like this. And I really had a problem with that. So I actually had started to channel, and I didn't even tell Rick because I didn't even want to do that in front of him. And I sat there before I channeled, and I said, look, you guys, this voice is not working out. I don't know how that works, but I'm not going up in front of people talking like that. That's not going to happen. And so I went back to Theo at my mentoring class the next week. I said, Theo, I have begun to channel, but it's not sounding pretty, and I'm not doing this publicly unless something changes. You know, I was laying down my requirements, right, because that's what we do with change. You know, I'm willing to embrace the change on these terms, number one, number two. You know, that's what we do. We begin to negotiate with self. And I'm sure my collective has told me many times how funny that period of time was for them to watch me struggle, figuring out who I am and why I'm here and what my connection is to them and who they are, you know. So it just took some practice. Theo told me you will get a calibration. And when you receive this calibration, all of that will smooth out. And I thought, wow, I'm getting a calibration, and I wasn't even intelligent enough to ask, what is a calibration? Because I hadn't been metaphysical that long. I was really in a hurry to call myself metaphysical, can you tell that? But I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have a clue. And there was no one I could call. This class and these people were the only people I had talked to about this. I wasn't going to tell anybody who knew me, because none of them are metaphysical. They wouldn't get it. And you know, I got that right away. As metaphysical people. That's what happens, right? Something wonderful and exciting happens to us, and immediately we worry about what everybody else is going to think. You know, and that's what I was doing. I was willing to experience this, but nowhere in my wildest dreams did I think I would come to talk to all of you or do any of the things I've done or be flying out to LA next week or any of that. That wasn't on the radar. I just wanted to experience this to see what was it that everyone was talking about, and what was it going to do to my life? Because at that point, my life had a huge void in it, a huge spiritual void, huge, and I could feel it. So, you know, the calibration came one night when I was going to bed. I laid down on my bed to go to sleep, and an electrical current came through me from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet, and I could feel it as a current. I could feel it flowing and coming in and flowing, and it didn't hurt, but almost. And it kind of paralyzed me in the moment. And I just thought to myself, Theo told me that this is going to be okay. So I'm just going to lay here and I'm going to go with this. You know, a year before that, I would have been screaming my head off. I would have been saying, Rick, I'm having a heart attack. Who does that? Lays in their bed and lets an electrical current flow through them because somebody told them they're a channel. You know, this is what change does to you. It opens you up to things that you weren't open to before. That's why you call it change. That's why it's different. And you begin to do things and act differently and think differently and open yourself up to experiences that you've never had before. And once you begin to embrace change, that becomes fun. It only lasted a few minutes, and then it was over. And I thought, wow, that must have been the calibration. And the next day when I went to channel, out came the voice that you'll hear today. So it was, they have since told me they were calibrating my frequency with theirs. They have to step their frequency down. They are a collective. One of the reasons collectives operate as collectives is because that frequency has to come through many levels. So some of them are transmuting that energy for my benefit before it gets to me, is how they have explained it to me. At the time that all of this was happening, I was having really horrible headaches. I had been suffering with what I thought were migraines for a really long time, and they were debilitating, just debilitating. So a couple of weeks into this experience where I was able to talk to them, I sat on my couch, and it was early hours of the morning. At this point, Rick still didn't know that I was channeling because I'll be honest with you, I didn't want to tell him because I knew he would go tell everyone else. And anybody who knows my husband knows that that is true. And so I thought, I can't tell him what's going on here until I'm going to be okay with him blabbing this to everyone, because that's what's going to happen. He's going to be really excited about this. And he had really gotten on board with the metaphysical things. He was going through a lot of changes of his own, that all of which were positive. So I was doing a lot of being up at 2 o'clock in the morning, experiencing these experiences, not even wanting to tell my husband about it because it was so new and it was so weird. And I was a little bit afraid that he would be freaked out by me pursuing it. Your husband comes home from work and you say, guess what? Discarnate entities are now speaking through me. Did you have a good day at work? I wasn't quite sure how that would be received. I was pretty sure he'd be cool with it, but until I really knew what I wanted, I didn't want to say anything to him because I didn't want him influencing me. That's really how I felt about it. So I sat on the couch one night with one of these headaches, and it hurt so bad. And I just called out to them, Theo has this saying, in the asking it is given. In the asking it is given. And they always end their channeling with, I'll say, thank you, Theo, thanks for letting me talk to you. And they'll say, this energy is available to you at any time. In the asking it is given. And I sat on my couch that night and I called out to Theo because I wasn't quite sure how I felt about my collective at that point. We had to go through a little getting to know each other. So I knew Theo better than I knew them, and I liked talking to Theo because I could do that in my conscious mind. When I channel, I'm kind of checked out. I'm a trance channel. So I called out to Theo, and I said, if you want me to channel, we got to do something with these headaches. My head hurts so bad. I can't even think of being in front of people doing this or doing this even in front of my husband with my head splitting like it is. And all of a sudden, I felt this ball of energy on the back of my neck, and I could feel that it was circular. I could feel that it was a ball. And it stayed there for about 10 minutes. And once again, because now I'm to the point where I'm beginning to embrace the change in my life, I'm like, I don't know what this is, but it can't hurt any worse than what's already happening. So I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to go with it. And at the end of that 10 minutes, I've never had another headache. They just were gone. They were taken away. They did something to my system that got rid of those headaches permanently so that I could be a channel. And that was the thing that really convinced me. What I was really concerned about with the change is that this was going to be a one-way street, that they were just going to come through me and that I wouldn't have any say about it, or I would lose my autonomy as an individual, being their mouthpiece. And all of those fears, those are the human fears. Why don't we like change? Well, maybe we're not in control. When I channel, I close my eyes and I invite them in. Believe me, I'm in control. I can come out of channel if I want to. But in order for them to deliver the message, it requires me to stay calm and to step away, to not get in the way of the message, and to find out that what will be my greatest contribution in my life, I believe, will be something that really I have very little to do with. That was a lesson as well. We want to control the change. We want to be significant. We all do. We all are significant. We're all divine beings. And believe me, if you don't believe that now, you will when you're done listening to them. But the thought that I would be making a contribution and I would have my eyes closed and they would come through me and they would speak for themselves, it just was such an odd thing. And it was somewhat disheartening. We all want to make a contribution that's all about us, right? Not about the collective energy, not about the connectivity that we have to one another. And I really had to get over having the ego we all have, So I guess what I want to say about change is it takes some guts. Change takes courage. It's not for wimps. Because usually when it's a change that really matters, you're walking into something that you don't understand yet. The understanding comes after the change. It doesn't come before. And the collective has made that very clear to me. They said, we're going to walk this together, and we'll be here whenever you want us to come through. That's our promise to you. Your promise to us will be that you will be willing to take our message as far as we want to take it and do the things that are necessary, like maintaining the website and all of those degrees that I have. I now know why I have them. Everything that I do, I'm a one-woman show at this point. I desperately need an assistant, and I have some control issues. That's just the truth. I'm pretty good at all those things I'm doing. But that's my background. I realized, too, that my change came, and nothing that was before it was a waste. So that's the other thing that I would say. You may have a change in your life. There may be something coming that's different, but that doesn't mean that anything's wasted, and it doesn't mean that anything's lost. It just means that your life is being transformed, and that as divine beings, that's what we're here to do. We're here to transform ourselves, and through that transformation, transform the earth. That's the plan. At least that's what they tell me. So at this point, I have been metaphysical about 3 years. I've been a channel for about 1.5 years of that, and I've been doing it publicly for a little bit less than a year. And I can say it's only been in the last 2 months where this change has really become comfortable. A lot of unknowns, lots of freaky stories. I could keep you here all day with the freaky stories. The point is not the freaky stories. The point is, what did they do to me? What change was affected in me when I realized, wow, there really are beings that might come from other planets as I'm looking at a UFO. How do you process, I can see spaceships and my husband can't? What does that even mean? It means that there are different dimensions. It means we all have different perceptions that affect our reality. And that's what change is. All change is a change in perspective, which then brings online a different truth that then invites a different reality. And that's what I have been doing now for over 2 years, inviting that reality and seeing, what does that feel like? Can I handle that? Okay, that's not so bad. What's the next thing? Okay, I can handle that. That's not so bad. It comes in increments, because that's how our soul sends it to us. You know, you are your higher self. The collective always makes the joke that you all talk about our souls like we carry them around in our pockets. And they say you don't have a soul, you are a soul. It's what you are, it's who you are. And what and who you are is so much more than you know. And for me, and I can only speak for myself on this, until I was willing to embrace something that is literally out of this world for most people, I didn't really know who I was at all. I understood finally why I spent 15 years in the church being miserable, because I just wanted the spirituality. I wanted the connection. How many can relate to that? That you want a connection. But then that's not working out, and you feel like you lose your connection, you see. And now I'm connected to all that is, and I'm connected to discarnate beings that dwell in different dimensions, that come forward with this amazing message. All because I was willing to stand at the back door and have a discourse with this UFO. They've since told me, we changed you in that moment. We were sending information to you via your higher self to make all of this okay. And we'd still be hanging there if that's as long as it took. You know, the universe has all the time in the world to bring you online and to love you through it with any change that's needed for you to step into who you want to be. We don't all have to be in a hurry for that. And if you have a day that you're afraid, then there's always tomorrow. It's not a race. You know, there isn't anybody keeping score. That's not what's happening here. It's the expansion of the human race through the divine souls that indwell the human race. The collective says that we are in the 5th dimension, that energy engulfs this planet as of 2012. We are traveling through a photon band. You can Google that. Science knows it. There's many papers out there on that. And that energy is here to transform us forever. We're going to the next level. And so many of us talk about expanding our souls. The collective would tell you, your soul is perfect. Your soul is perfect. You are the soul. You were perfect in the moment in which you were created. What you're here to do is ascend the human body, to take the human body by the divinity dwelling within it to the 5th dimension, to be able to dwell at a level and have an experience incarnate, different than any experience we've ever had before. And that's the message that they're here to deliver. I channeled a message recently that's on our website. We have a couple of workshops coming up, and one of them is called The Art of Loving Self. The collective talks about loving self all the time. And in that channel, they said, love is not a feeling, it is not an emotion, it is a frequency that is the absence of fear. And I thought that was so appropriate to your theme for this month with embracing change. You need to love yourselves enough to know that the change is not going to destroy you, that you've got this, that you're a divine being inside of that human body, you're capable, you're magnificent, and you are pure source energy, you are love inside of that human body. And love conquers all things because love is the absence of fear. So we're going to let them come in and speak for themselves. Can you bring a chair up for me? Yeah, I think I'll be okay right here. And the water, too. So is there anyone here who has not seen live channeling before? Oh, a few of you. Okay. So my head doesn't turn around. I don't levitate. I don't do any of that. All I'm going to do is I'm going to breathe, and I'm going to bring them in. By bring them in, what I mean is I invite their frequency to meld with mine. A little bit of feedback here. Should I move further away? Yeah, I'm going to move over here a little bit. And they come in the right side of my body. My head begins to feel like it's filling with peanut butter. It's kind of what that feels like. And then they speak through me. And I can hear what's happening. The longer I channel, the more I'm able to remember what they're saying to you. Some things I remember better than others. My experience as I'm channeling is that I just kind of step away and I listen. I do sometimes react to what they say, and very recently they've begun to feed me images. So sometimes they will give you a metaphor, and I'll be seeing that metaphor in my mind's eye before they will speak to you about it. I don't receive the words and then speak them. That's very much they're choosing the vocabulary, but they're using my vocabulary to do it. Once in a while, you'll hear them go, this is kind of them thinking about how they want to phrase something, a choice of a word, you know. I get the information as what I call a thought package. When someone asks them a question, I know in an instant everything they're going to say. Not the words they're going to say, but the concept that they're going to deliver to you. I know that before they even begin to speak. I know the whole thing. And it tends to be that aspect of it that I do remember. A lot of people want to talk to me about the exact words that they spoke, and for me, the experience is more what it was that they were trying to say. And it's interesting for me to listen to my own channeling, because sometimes I will get a remembering of what I know they were trying to say, and I think it's interesting how they went about doing that in the choice of words, you see. So the information that I get is different than the information that you get. And I also feel their frequency. I feel when they are being funny, and I feel when they are feeling tremendous amount of love for you. I feel when they're being a little candid, and they do that. So let's get started. Yes, Kelly, we are here. We're appreciative of the opportunity to be with you this morning. Embracing change is a very interesting topic, is it not? The first thing that we want to tell you is the change you are attempting to embrace, that you are struggling with embracing, you have brought it to self. Law of attraction is never not working. If there is a change in your life, you can sometimes feel it coming with your intuition, yes. There's a change in your life, whether you are embracing it or whether you are not embracing it. The first thing that we want to say to you is you have invited it with your frequency. So if we're going to talk about change, we're going to have to talk about frequency, because change is the result of frequency and how it works in the human body and how it works in the source field, you see. So when you are going through an aspect of your life, some experience, something that is coming to you, And you are functioning at certain frequencies, all of you. Now, we don't like to say high and low frequencies. We don't like how human beings have to classify everything as being good and bad and black and white. This is a result of having spent hundreds of thousands of years within the third density. It's a density of polarity, of comparison, black and white, right and wrong, good and bad, you see. And it's necessary, because in the contrast between these things is where your choices are made. You have been learning all of this time how to make choices as creator beings inside of human bodies. That is what the third dimension has done for you. Many of you talk about, don't want to be in the third dimension anymore, want to be in the fifth dimension. We're here to tell you fifth dimension is already here. That energy completely engulfs this planet. The only difference between those dwelling in third and those dwelling in fifth is your perception. Just as our channel was saying, it took us a very long time to convince her of this concept of perception. And this is one of the reasons that we brought it to her in the way that we did. When you are seeing spaceships and your husband isn't, it's a lot easier to explain perception. Do you agree with us on this? So what happens is you've been living in the third density. You've been living with the polarity. You are used to, in every moment of your life, making choices, whether you realize it or not. As a creator being, as a divine soul inside of a human body, your choices are moment to moment. Your thoughts are creations. Now, we know that there are many here who understand this concept. We want to take it to a little more intricate level for you. All your thoughts are creations. All of them. Not just the ones you sit down to manifest in your meditation. You get a strong emotion of dislike for someone. That's a thought. That's a creation right there. And it's these types of energies, all these different creations that are happening around the earth plane that are creating the totality of the human consciousness upon this plane. And what you are seeing around you, with everyone freaking out, all the violence, all the changes, this is a result of the dimension you are moving into. And we are here to tell you, do not be afraid. There's nothing to be afraid of. There are some souls upon the planet who are less experienced than other souls. We're not going to say immature. That is another misunderstood concept. There's no such thing as an immature soul. You are pure source energy. You are God. Do you think God could be immature? Yes, no such thing as an immature soul. There are souls who have incarnated and have more experience at that than other souls. It's the only difference. The soul itself is pure perfection, pure source energy, pure love in the moment in which it is created, you see. So you get these souls and they come to the earth plane. And for most of you in the room, you were born within the third density. You were born with the polarity. You were born making choices between black and white. And many of you, whether you are metaphysical or not, are still continuing to view your world this way. Now you have changes that look as if they are out of control in your world. You have much violence. You have the one in the White House that everyone seems to be so upset about, you see. We're not upset at all. He's just playing his role. He's playing a role for change, and it was needed, whether you want to accept that or not. It's the energy of this soul that we're interested in, not his politics, you see. So what you're saying, you have come into the third density. You have come into polarity. You're used to seeing the contrast and making choices. Now you're moving on to fifth dimension. Some souls are going to deal with that better than others. That energy is affecting your ability to make choices. You're moving into perceptions that don't have as much contrast. That's the first thing that's making you uncomfortable. You're used to everything being very clearly outlined, yes? Everyone has their position about everything upon the earth plane. You live in a very intolerant world, very intolerant of one another, very intolerant of one another's beliefs. Would you agree with us on this? Now, this particular community may be an exception to that, but the consciousness of the human race is still such that this is happening. These fifth dimensional energies are here to change that, and there's going to be some who aren't going to be all right with that. They're not going to be able to handle the energy. They're not going to make the choice for change. And what they do is they begin to act out. So the first question we want to ask you about change is, what camp would you be in? Because there are many within the metaphysical community who think that they are immune to this, and you are not. There are divine beings inside of human bodies, and those human bodies are being changed in every moment at the molecular level because of the energy bombarding this planet. The transformation that is happening is not a transformation of your divinity, it is a transformation of your humanity. At the molecular level, your DNA is being changed. It's being switched on. And you're going to begin to have some experiences you have not had before. So, when we talk about expansion into the fifth dimension, we want to make clear that you understand. We're not talking about a change to your divinity. It is time. It is time for the metaphysical community to begin to understand. You're all divine beings before you came. You came to be incarnate inside of human bodies. Not for the expansion of your soul, for the expansion of the human race. That these bodies could come with you into fifth dimension. That they could resonate at a frequency where they could handle the fifth dimensional energies coming in and begin to have a completely different perception of what the world could be, you see. And it isn't just happening to you, it's happening to everyone. Because these energies are affecting the molecular structure of your humanity. So many times we speak with people and they want to talk to us about soul expansion. We talk about soul expansion, yes. The soul expands by the experiences that you have upon the earth plane. This expansion is experiential. Think of it as you go and you have a career, you see. And you go to the career the first day when you are done with the schooling. And you haven't done this career before. You have been trained to do this career. So are you immature? No, you're not immature. You went to school, you got a job. You're just inexperienced, you see. That's the difference. It's the inexperience. When you come to the earth plane, you're expanding your soul through the experiences, and you're taking every experience that you experience here and you're putting it into what we call your toolbox. Now, your toolbox is what you use to help other people, you see. And you have all of these experiences, not just in this incarnation, in all incarnations, in all essences of you. And we would tell you there are very many more of them than you think that there are. Higher self is at the center. Higher self is a power plant. Think of higher self as being in the center of a ball. Earlier you were working with an energetic ball, were you not? Think of this ball now. Think of all of your incarnations and essences of you in all dimensions, in time and space, being on the outside of this ball, connecting back, each of them individually, to higher self in the center. Higher self is the power plant that runs that energy from one essence of you to another essence of you. When you're having these experiences from past lives, we would say they are not in the past. They're happening concurrently. Time is a construct. And because they're happening concurrently is why they are affecting you. When one aspect of you is going through change and isn't handling it well, that energy goes through higher self to another aspect of you who knows what to do with that change. And that change comes back with the energy that you need to deal with it, you see. Higher self is always giving you. Higher self is you. Just because you are an aspect of higher self, just as you are an aspect of God, does not mean that you have lost any of your divinity within this human body. Source decided it wanted to have an experience of itself by creating all of us and all of you. You are pure source energy. Source did not make some little aspect of itself. Source did not birth you. That is a poor metaphor going forward. You are source. Pure source energy with the ability to tap into the source field and create anything you want. So if change is scaring you, create something that won't. But make it better, make it bigger, make it finer than your last creation, and you'll be doing just fine. So this energy is coming from each aspect of you to higher self, and higher self is sending it out to each aspect of you that needs it in the measure in which you need it, you see. Some of the experiences our channel did not share with you were from other lives that she has had. There in the beginning, every time she meditated, we gave her something. We helped her to make the connection, lending our frequency to hers to open her up so she could see all the people she had ever been, who she is now. And if they were doing that, cannot she be doing this? And that is why she came through that change with flying colors, you see. She got everything she needed from self, not from calling up her friends and talking about it, see? Not from lamenting it and crying over it, not from being afraid to step into it. She believed us when we told her, you have everything that you need to do what we're asking you to do. You just need to trust us. You need to trust higher self. You need to trust your guides. It's going to be all right. And we would say this to anyone here who's going through a change that is uncomfortable. It's going to be all right. This energy is here to support you. Fifth dimension has now come. There are aspects of all of you that dwell way beyond the fifth dimension. Trust us on this. Where do you think higher self is dwelling? Higher self dwells with God. So I want to say to you, you have everything that you need. You need to embrace the change. You need to step into the change because you don't have a choice. So let's just talk about that for a moment. These energies that you are traveling in, they were put in place by many of us. We are the collective because this is what she calls us. What we are the star nations. We dwell from the 5th to the 12th dimension, most of us, and some beyond that. We are here now for the changing of the energy. We are here for the transformation of the human race. This is what we are here to talk about. This is what we are here to mentor and teach you through. But you need to know you got yourself to this point on your own. The human race, for the first time in a very, very long time, has made the decision for change. And that tipping point came through the dedication of many of you to carry light into this world and to transmute that energy to the ones around you to begin to affect change. We would not be here now in this photon band. You wouldn't be traveling through it. You would have destroyed this planet if that change had not been made. So the first thing we want you to know is the biggest change you're going through is the energetic photon band. You have invited it, and with your energy, you have lent the energy of all the souls upon this soul to its creation. You are intricately connected to us. You are intricately connected to all that is. No one sitting in this room is alone. None of you. None of you. As the changes come in your life, they are a result of the energy upon this planet. We can guarantee you that. That energy is going to push things to the surface that need to be cleared because your baggage cannot come into fifth dimension with you. You need to get it dealt with in the dimension in which it was created. So if you are going through change, what we would say to you is you need to welcome it. If you do not welcome it, and you do not go through the change, and you cannot raise the frequency of these human bodies, there will come a time in the not too distant future where those souls who cannot transmute that type of energy inside of human bodies won't be able to incarnate here anymore, because this planet will dwell at the fifth dimension, which is the dimension of love. Love is the absence of fear. You cannot bring your fear into the fifth dimension. That's what we're telling you. The change that you're struggling with, you have invited it yourself with your frequency, and we're not saying as a punitive measure. We're saying this is just frequency. When you dwell at a certain frequency, you will invite to you everything that dwells at that frequency. This is law of attraction. If you have a change in your life, you have attracted it to self. And it is there to transform your experience in this incarnation, that the next incarnation you would be better equipped to bring that human body into a denser fifth dimensional energy. This is very much a physics principle. Is it a spiritual principle? Absolutely. There's nothing that divine beings do that is not spirituality. Your entire existence is a spiritual principle. But we want you to know you must embrace the change. You obviously have a choice. But if you are experiencing conflict, experiencing things that you don't like, experiencing these emotions that you don't know what to do with them, any asking it is given. We are the collective. Reach out to us. We tell people all the time, you don't have to go to our channel for that. We are energy. We are pure source energy. And the only difference between us and you is we've got a little greater measure of that. We've been doing this for a very long time. We are here for you, to help you, to teach you, to mentor you, to bring you into a dimension that you can't even imagine. Just as our channel looked out her door and she saw the spaceship in the sky, her entire paradigm changed. Her life will never be the same, and neither will yours. And you don't need to see a UFO for that to happen. You go home today and you sit down with self and you say, now I understand where this energy is coming from. I understand that the change is for my benefit. The change is for the benefit of the entire human race. And it is time for me to step into it, you see. This is what you say to self, and we're telling you, you will not be sorry. We thank you for having us with you this morning. We thank you for inviting our channel. We're sorry that we're not going to take questions, but there's some things you need to know. And we think what we need to tell you is sometimes more important than the questions that you ask. We love you and we love you. And we will see you soon. This part's always really weird. Just need a minute. So I too would like to say thank you. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you for being willing to listen to the message. I hope in sharing my story that it's an inspiration to you, not as my story, but as the story of all of us. All that's happened to me is that I'm looking at things with a new perspective, and that opened up a new energy, and in they came. And we all have a role to play. We all have a contribution to make. And from what they're telling me, there's never been a time that it's been more important to embrace doing that. Not just for us as individuals, but for the planet as a whole. So Rick and I will be out at our table in the Atrium here. If you want to find out about anything I'm doing, I won't stand up here and list everything we're doing. It's kellythebo.com. Everything's on the website. I would ask if you'd like to sign up for our newsletter. It's free, and we send out free channels, and we do free webinars, where you can stay in touch even when we're not in the area. And we have a box with some pieces of paper for you to be able to do that on the table. So thanks very much for having me.